Well, now we don't, so.
True.
But yeah, we used to take 10s. And really probably should have had 15, but you can only take 10.
Okay,
There's too many.
our house is too full.
I don't think they could
Sorry,
ever.
Jansen and Gentry, you're gone.
You have to sleep on the porch.
Absolutely adore their grandparents, and I make it known. I tell them, I said, you don't realize how lucky you boys are.
Oh, yeah.
Because, you know, coming from a household where I only knew, I briefly knew 2 of my grandparents. At 7 years old, that's tough, especially coming down to, you know, being part of a family that's pretty spread out. I mean, there's a lot of Collins in this area.
Ever just seen like things fly across the floor, and she looked at me, she said, thank goodness. She said, I've been doing that, and I would have to be on the search committee and to be able to. I mean, it was an eye-opener being on the search committee, but it was just a blessing.
Every raffle we got to, I would say, is this a bad one?
And I would say, no, this is a good one.
It's a good one.
And I went rapping a lot of times, and every time we go through rapping, I would pray, dear God, you know I'm only doing this because I love my husband. Please don't let me die doing this. So that's the story.
Good evening, and welcome to another life conversation here at Bethel. Again, we are super pleased to have a wonderful couple with us here this evening to help us with this life conversations that we have. We have Max and Susan Blake with us here tonight. Welcome.
Thank you.
It's great to have you guys with us. Max, have us with us again, and this time with
My support
Susan.
system.
I'm going to be very quiet.
No, you're not.
How are you guys doing?
Good.
Good.
Thank you.
Good. Now, the house you've settled into again, so everything's well there, right?
Yeah. Pretty
Good.
much there.
Good. Megan and Drew still doing okay?
They are.
Good.
Megan is in Lynchburg, Virginia.
Lynchburg, okay.
With the kids, 3
Yeah,
grands
yeah.
and a house. And Drew and Mallory are in Nashville.
Excellent.
And they just bought a new house. And I was just down there last week and helped them unpack.
Yeah, there's always boxes to unpack when you move. You know,
Yeah.
they'll be unpacking boxes for a year.
I'm glad you did that first because that's going to be me.
Yeah. They're used to hearing me mess up. So
All friends.
very good, very good. So, Max, you work for Solvay,
Correct.
right? Susan, are you working anywhere?
At home,
At home. Oh, well, that's a super duper job.
taking care of family far and wide.
Sure.
I've been everywhere. Since we've been back. Actually, when we were in Texas, so many things happened with our family
Yeah.
that Max talked to his boss's boss and told him if we could get anywhere on the East Coast because our family really needs some help. So that's what I've been spending a lot of time on.
Yeah.
But I have worked in the past, off and on, quite a bit. But homemaker a good deal of the time when the kids were younger.
So how long have you guys been married? And I know I asked you the question the last time. So Susan, let's have you answer the question this time.
39 years.
39 years. Very
We
good.
practiced. 39 years.
Very good. 39 years. Wow. How'd y'all meet?
Well, you mean the first time or the second time?
Well, you tell me.
The second time,
Okay.
the meaningful time.
The meaningful time. We had a mutual friend who was trying to fix us up.
Yeah.
She was the choir director at my church,
Okay.
but she had gone to his church when you were growing up, right?
Well, her dad and my dad were high school friends.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Lifetime friends.
Mhm, yeah.
And so we knew the family.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't know Susan and her family, but I knew the person that was trying to fix us up.
And I knew of him, and he knew of me. I actually knew his brother. His brother and I were in school together. We were in the same grade. But she was trying to fix us up, and he said he didn't really know me, and he wasn't going to ask me out. And she talked to me, and I said, I don't know him. I'm not going out with him. So we both refused multiple times. And at Marshall University, where I was going to college, and he was going to West Virginia Tech.
Yeah.
And did you go there?
I did.
Aha.
Yes.
And so you know how far away they are.
Yes.
And there was a bowling alley at Student Union at Marshall, and I went with some friends bowling. This was in the days when things were not electronic.
Right.
You know, you'd set two seats side by side, one for each lane. And I was sitting, doing the scoring, and I looked up and saw Scott, his brother. And then I looked over and I saw the name Max, and I went, oh my gosh, it's that guy. It's that
guy.
It's that guy. This is awkward. And so through the night, I made a mistake, and I had no eraser, and he had this beautiful line.
You can use my pencil. It has an eraser.
So I erased and gave it back to him, more awkward silence from then on, and then they left. And then about 10 minutes later, he came back and said, you can use my eraser the rest of the night. And he walked away, and I'm like, that's awkward. That was the beginning. So we
Mr.
met.
Smooth.
We had met,
Yes.
and our mutual friend found out we had met and invited him to come to my church
Okay.
and sing.
Oh,
And
okay.
so he called me up and invited me out for pizza afterwards, and I'd already met him, so I said yes.
Okay.
And then, do you want the full story or just the partial story?
As much as you want to tell me.
Okay.
It's a good story so far. I mean, the eraser twice that was excellent.
He was a smooth operator, I'll tell you. So anyway, he would come home on the weekend, he would ask me out.
Yeah.
And I went out with him, and it was probably 3 weeks or something like that. But I'd told him from the beginning I didn't want to date anybody serious. I just, we could go out, but nothing serious. And so maybe the fourth weekend, he was going to ask me out again, and I said, listen, you're a really nice guy, but remember, I don't want to date anybody serious, and I'm not doing anything this weekend. I just don't want to go out. I just want to be home this weekend. And so he was like, that's okay. I just come to see my family anyway.
I'm sure I said it just like that.
Well, yeah.
So I went to work in downtown Huntington and got off work at 9 on, it was a Friday night. It was Friday night.
Yeah.
And I did not have a car. My parents always picked me up. And I went outside and I had no parents. And so I sat on a bench and waited and went in about every half hour and called him. And it was 11 o'clock at night. I was still sitting on the bench, and the security guard kept checking on me. And I knew his family only lived, like, how many blocks away?
I don't know, 5 or 6 blocks
Yeah.
away.
Okay.
I'm like, okay, I have his number in my head. So I called him and I said, Max, I know I said I didn't want to see you this weekend, but I'm kind of having a problem. And so he came with a warm bowl of popcorn on the seat of his truck, took me to his house until we could figure out where my parents
Where
were.
your parents were.
And from that point on, we went out. And so what I like to say is God put me in timeout for about 2 hours.
Yep, there you
until
go.
I figured out this is the guy I'm supposed to date.
Yeah. And to show up with a warm bowl of popcorn on a long evening like that was the right thing.
That's right.
The funny thing is, when he went out the door, tell him what your dad did. He said, she snaps, you go.
Didn't take very long.
So when we were dating, if I would ask him for anything, if he did it, his dad would snap. So that's kind of how we met and, dated and got married.
Very good. Very good. So you went to Marshall, you went to Tech. I know that at Tech, one of the jobs you had at Tech was a river guide. Did you enjoy that?
I did. I did that in the summers
Yeah.
for one of the whitewater rafting outfitters. And Susan loved whitewater rafting also.
No.
Well, I that was my job in the summers
Sure.
while I was in college.
Yeah.
And a friend of mine had started a raft repair business, and some of the old rafts got retired, and he had one that was for sale, one of the original rafts that we used. And so I bought it.
He had it when
And
we got
patched
married.
it
Didn't you
up,
have it when we got
yeah.
married? Yeah.
And so
Its name was Sugar Magnolia. Sugar Mag.
Sugar Magnolia.
Sugar Magnolia.
It's,
Okay.
yeah, it's an old Grateful Dead song.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know anything about
A lot of
it.
the rafts, well, the rafts at that time,
He called it Sugar Mag.
they had names, painted on the side of the raft, and they were Jimmy Buffett songs or Grateful Dead or whatever.
Yeah, okay.
Anyway, so I had this raft, and when we were newly married, and we would take volunteer trips, just, people we knew from church or friends or whatever, hey, we're going rafting this weekend, you want to go? And so we had a couple of adventures on the river that,
The first trip out, I thought he was dead. It was really, seriously, the first trip out, we went down, and he the very first big rapid that we went through, he explained to everybody like how to brace with your legs and with your knees and how to paddle and how to get through it and what he was going to be doing. And we went through the very first rapid, and I went out the side of the boat. And so I had to be fished back in. It was very scary. I was like in the middle of a rapid.
I've done it many times. I understand the
Yeah,
feeling.
but he had told us, when you go downstream, make sure you get your feet down. So
Yep.
when you come up on rocks, you put your feet out. And I did everything right. Then we got to the next rapid. I was really seriously bracing and paddling hard because he said that was the secret. Popped right out, went out again, but this time I hit him and knocked him out.
Okay.
And somebody else. There was somebody else that went out too.
I just remember he knocked me
And I
out.
came up and got a hold of the side of the boat, and everybody was yelling, "Where's Max? Where's Max?" And there is no Max. Like, we're all looking everywhere, and there is no Max. I'm like, "Max, Max." Everybody's trying to find him. So we're in the middle of a rapid. Nobody even knows how to get down it. Out of control, and there is no Max. And I felt something at my feet. And I reached down, and it was his life jacket, and I pulled it. And he came out of the water like this. Like
You were
that.
stuck under the raft?
Under
He
the
was
raft.
under
Oh,
it, feeling,
okay,
trying to
yeah.
find his way out from under the
I
raft.
think she exaggerates a
No,
little
I
bit.
did not. I had nightmares about this. No lie. My sister was on the trip, my older sister. We got through it, and she said, "Can we just pick the raft up and carry it back?"
No, we can't do that.
So one of his friends said, Max, they were up in the front, and the cooler was in the front.
Yeah.
And they said, "We think the cooler is weighting it down." And so when it hits the wave, it's just buckling.
Okay.
And the middle is popping up.
Yeah.
And that's where I was. So it just shot me out. And once we moved the cooler, it was fine from then on. I never went out again, but every rapid we got to, I would say, "Is this a bad one?"
And I would say, no, this is a good one.
It's a good one.
And I went rafting a lot of times, and every time we go through a rapid, I would pray, "Dear God, you know I'm only doing this because I love my husband. Please don't let me die doing this." So that's the
Answered
story.
prayer.
By the
Answered
last
prayer,
two,
yes.
I was starting to enjoy it, but it was
Very
many,
good.
many raft trips later, so.
I've had a lot of fun doing that myself, and so it's been on many trips with different groups.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it is a lot of fun.
He's had a lot of fun doing it.
Yeah, it was
But
great.
most-
It was a great summer job.
Oh, yeah. It was the one fun one I had was going down Upper Gully, closing day.
Mm-hmm.
You put in up at the dam, and
That's an exciting put in.
it is. It is. It is. And we had, there were 6 or 8 of us in the boat, I can't remember. And there was only 2 of us that had been rafting before. Upper Gully, which is a
I've heard about
pretty
it.
intense, was a pretty
Yeah.
intense ride.
Yeah.
And
It's very intense.
they said, "Who wants to be in the front?" Nobody volunteered, and I said, "I'll take that ride." So I got to ride one. I got to ride in the front of that one. That was a good job. That was a good time.
We do have kayaks now, and I like our kayaks.
Sure.
That's fun. I like that a lot better.
Probably don't use them on the whitewater though.
Smaller water,
Yeah.
it's much better.
So good. So you guys live here now again,
Mm-hmm.
as we talked about. So you've lived here before, and you've had some different times. How many times have you all moved since you've been married? Talk a little
So-
bit about this.
We added this up. How many times have we
8
moved?
times.
8 times.
8 times.
Yes.
Wow.
But we had a long stretch here. Like,
Yes.
we were
20
here
years.
like 20 years,
Sure.
before we moved the last time. And it's been a good place. It's been a good place to be. Drew said it was a good place to grow up.
Absolutely.
So-
I agree with him.
Yeah. So we moved to Wellesley Addition first.
Okay.
And it belonged to Kim Burdett, Paul
Yep.
Burdett. And they were building a house right next door.
Yeah.
So we were moving in and they were moving out on the same day, pretty
Okay.
much,
Yeah,
just
yeah,
about.
that's
I
okay.
think the next day the moving truck came. I was helping carry stuff out of my house to their house. And Kim is actually one that invited us to this church
Very
first.
good. Very good.
And so Lloyd Hamlin Jr. had been the pastor, but Randy Kokersberger was a pastor when we came.
Okay.
And interestingly enough, Lloyd Hamlin was my youth pastor in Huntington. Yeah, when I was in the youth group, he was a businessman and had quit that to go to school to be a pastor, and his job was youth pastor part-time at our
Okay.
church. And so I knew him through that, with
Very good.
him and his family and his dad, mom, I knew all of them.
Yeah.
So when I came here, I knew Kim and I knew Barbara and Lloyd.
Okay.
And so we joined the church and got busy here pretty quick. And here's another aside. When I was in youth group, in the youth choir, the youth choir came here and sang,
Okay.
and we sang over in the chapel.
I was gonna say, was that before this side?
The
was
building
built?
had just been built.
Okay.
And so we sang in the chapel, the youth group did.
Yeah.
I sang over there, and then there was a service later, and we sang over here in the new. So in this one, I sang in this
Yeah.
right after it was built.
Okay.
So I even remember the song, I had a solo in it. It was, what if someone had not shared with me that Jesus paid for sin?
Okay.
And so I could probably still sing it, but I'm not going to.
It's kind of like the good Lord was saying, hey, check this out, check this church out, because you're going to be here in a little bit.
I do find that weird. It is weird,
A
isn't
little
it?
glimpse into your future.
Yeah, it's really weird that I was here before. I never anticipating that this is where I was going to raise my children.
Sure?
Yeah, so we lived in Wellesley. We lived up on Blennerhassett Heights.
Yeah.
That's the one we lived in the longest. We
Okay.
moved to Georgia between there, and then 20 years, and then Texas, a couple years, and now I'm back here again. So
So it was, if I heard the math right, it was 20 years between Georgia and Texas that you were.
That we
no,
lived here.
it was, yeah, oh, okay, so Georgia, back from Georgia to Blennerhassett Heights, then here for about 20 years, and then to Texas.
Okay.
So,
Very good.
and all within like, what, 5 miles of every house we've owned here?
Yeah.
And so like when we moved back this time, we didn't try to be here.
Yeah.
We just like anywhere we could find a house, looked at like 40 houses and ended up right back
in
where
the
we
same
started,
spot. Wow.
which turned out really well because, Max got involved right back in being an elder and helping with, the pastor and all that. So, yeah, it all worked out really well.
Well, we're certainly happy that the good Lord brought you back to the same spot again.
We are too. We are too. And closer than we've ever been to church.
Okay.
So it's worked out really well.
Oh, very good. Yeah, I think 30 minutes is close as I've ever been. It may ever be to this church.
Route 50 helps, so doesn't it? Like, do you use Route
Not me.
50? Oh, really?
Nah, not
Yeah.
really.
I used to teach at Mineral Wells Elementary School and sub there. It cut 15 minutes off my time. I was so happy when 50 went in. Getting out there is so much better.
Yeah. I take that way to come into work every morning. When I go down to the plant, I would come out Route 50, so it probably helps a little bit. So, yeah. Very good. So Max, we know you're an engineer working for Solvay. Susan, you were a teacher?
Yes.
And I think I'll remember a librarian at one point too.
Library media specialist.
Library media
Yeah,
specialist.
so it's kind of a combination of a library and computer science. So, everything has gone digital. I'll turn my Bible over, it's flipping. Everything has gone pretty digital. Catalogs are online, resources are online. So I did a lot of teaching how to use the library, how to use online resources, how to verify your sources, all that. And even the catalog had so much more to it. It's not just a catalog. It was a
Right.
resource the students could use for all kinds of things, projects, It made their life a lot easier. So I spent a lot of time teaching about digital media and how to use all the resources they could. So I loved that job.
Good.
I did, and I was doing that job before he got the promotion and we went to Texas. So people will ask me, like, did you retire? And I'm like, no, I'm kind of a follower. I quit my job to follow my husband, and I thought that I would get involved in teaching in Texas.
Yeah,
But then
the hurricane.
things went crazy.
Yeah.
So, but yes, I was a teacher in Putnam County when we first got married. Then when we moved here, I taught at preschool at Fairlawn.
Okay.
And got really involved in the ministry here, in children's ministry, doing preschool. We had, oh my gracious, when
That
we
was a
first
bunch.
came,
Yeah.
Yeah, there was a big,
when we first came here, I was pregnant with Drew,
Okay.
like 7 months. And I walked in the door and they say, boy, we know what Sunday school class you need to be in. And it was a Sunday school class where like a lot of women were about to have babies. We had so many children that we needed 3 rooms for nursery.
Yeah.
And so I ended up in that ministry, taking care of nursery, preschool, and then children's, and And then later on, Word of Life, the Max, youth, yes, and doing some children's musicals. So even though I wasn't teaching, I was sort of in my field here,
Oh, yeah.
teaching and training people in different ways, new ways to teach children that they could learn best. And so I really, honestly, it was an answer to prayer because when I was a very little girl, less than 5 or 5 or below, I can remember sitting on my toy box in my bedroom and praying to God
Sure.
and asking him, this is why I say that I prayed for Max before he even knew it. But there were some difficult circumstances, and I was really heartbroken, and I was crying. You wouldn't think a 5-year-old would be that distraught, but really crying. And I had been taught that Jesus loves me.
Yes.
I always went to church, and my Sunday school teachers taught that Jesus loves me, and that you could pray to him. And I was upset, and I was praying to him and asking him about the family that I wanted to have when I grew up, and telling him about the kind of mommy I wanted to be. And
At 5.
at 5.
Wow.
And in my room, I felt God hug me. I felt him love me in my room. And I remember the light. I remember exactly where I was sitting. I can remember the color of the walls, the arrangement of my furniture, because it was so distinct. And the sunlight coming in my room, I can remember it. And just a peace that just came in the room, and I felt loved by God. And so that's why, like, when children are saved when they're little, like even when I was teaching preschool or I did Awana, you know, there are some people that may doubt, like that someone can be that young.
Sure.
How old were you when you got
6.
saved? He was young too.
6, okay.
And never doubted.
No?
No. I can't say that was my salvation moment, but I certainly believed in Jesus then, and I know he heard my prayer. And the Bible, there's a verse that I found in the Bible that talks about the angels of children are always seen before the presence of God. That's not an exact quote, but that's basically what it is, and I believe that. And so, anyway, fast forward, when we moved here and I got my job at Fairlawn, and I began to learn all these things about how to discipline children, how to speak to children at preschool, because my degree was elementary, it wasn't preschool.
Okay.
And Debbie Thrall was at Fairlawn and had lots of training. I read lots of books and began to implement those things at home in the way that I treated my own children, teach them to him. We did them together the same way. And I knew then that was God answering the prayer of a 5-year-old. I knew that God, when he gave me that feeling of peace, that he had already planned. It's going to happen, Susan. You don't know this, but I got you covered. And so, and then I took the things I learned from Debbie at Fairlawn and brought them here into the preschool here, and had training sessions for teachers on how to teach children and how they learn through play and their experiences, and how to involve God in everything that you're talking to them about. And it changed us at home. And when Awana came in, I think I'm way off track of where we moved, but I think it's all part of the story.
It's all connected.
When Awana started, I think it was Dan Freeland that was here helping to
Yes.
bring Awana. And they had a call that said, everybody who's going to teach, come, we have a meeting. And if you're just interested in seeing what it's about, come. I did not want to teach it. I was already involved in other things. And I came, and I just wanted to see.
Sure.
And so I sat through all the meetings, listened to all the stuff they talked about, wanted to see if I wanted my kids to be part of it. And the next week, someone handed me an Awana shirt, a leader shirt. Said, here's your shirt.
Here's your shirt.
I said, what? I'm not a leader. Well, you came to the training,
came to
so
the
here's your
meeting.
shirt. I'm like, okay. And then the next week they said, here's your bill.
Pay for your shirt.
I had to pay for the shirt? I didn't even sign up. But out of that, more of God using that to teach me, because then I was helping my kids learn these scriptures.
Sure.
And explaining them to them, him too, not just me. And they became part of our conversations in the day. You remember that verse that you learned? You know, be kind to one another, forgiving one another, just as God in Christ forgave you. You know that fight you're having with your brother or your sister? And then it became a conversation about what God wants in your life. And so Awana was a big part from this church of raising my children.
Mine
they-
too. Mine grew up in the Awana program here too, and it is a wonderful program for sure.
It changes the conversation in your
Sure.
home. It really does. So God became an even bigger part of our family. So,
Really good. I remember Randy was here when I came too, you know, because when Amy and I first
I remember
started
when you
coming
came.
to church, and it was a big change for me. I was never in a church this big, so it was a big change, but it was good. And I remember you guys already being here and being very involved.
Yeah.
And then when you took over the youth program and stuff, and
yeah.
it was really cool. So
Oh, it was cool for us too. We learned a lot. I remember sitting right here with Amy right beside me, trying to figure out how to say your last name. And I was holding one of those black folders with the music, and I went, "Oh, a folder, a folder," and that's how I learned your name.
okay.
Yeah, and Amy went,
that works. That works.
But
Even I mess it up still sometimes, and I've had it for a long time. You know.
So the teaching part is I subbed when Drew was in 9th grade, Megan was in 8th, all through their high school years. Got a job right when Drew left high school as a library media specialist, because the day Drew started at Marshall, I was in admissions signing up for graduate school
Okay.
the same day, so that I could get a library media certification.
Very good.
So out of the graduate program, they had a library media certification in that. And so Drew and I were getting offers like to join the Honor Society, the same one at the same time. And he's like, "Mom, something's wrong about this."
It's supposed to be my time at school, not yours.
Yeah, when I went and interviewed for a job at Mineral Wells, he said, "What are you doing? You're not supposed to be doing this."
Oh, that's cool. So I know that when you all lived in Georgia and you lived in Texas, you made a lot of good friends and family there. You still keep in contact with those people?
Oh, yeah.
Yes, we do. We, in both places, we quickly became involved in a good church.
Yeah.
So the church in Georgia had Awana, so we fit right in.
Joined in there, already knew it, so
Sang in the choir. That was a wonderful
experience.
singing in that choir with our friends there.
Yeah, Roger Brink.
Roger Brink was the
director.
director, and his wife was there, and we made some really good
Yeah.
friends.
It was a church full of joy.
Cool.
Almost too joyful for me, if you can believe that.
Well, that's pretty joyful.
So much so, like we were taught, we had looked at different churches, and the kids wanted to join there, Max wanted to join there, and I was like, I don't know, can they be real? You know, like they're overwhelmingly friendly. Like the first day we were there, like, let's all go out to dinner. Like, okay, you know, it was a wonderful experience, and they were so open. And I was doing my devotion at home, and I opened it up in the middle of all this. And God is like he took the Bible and just whacked me up the side of the head, because it was a verse. I think it was in Corinthians, and it said, "We open wide our hearts to you, Corinthians. All we ask is a fair exchange." And I'm like, oh, that really hurts, God. But I see what you're telling me. I get what you're saying. These people have opened wide their hearts, and I'm not giving a fair exchange.
Right.
And we joined the church. It was wonderful. We made some wonderful friends that we still love.
We are still in contact with many of them.
And when we moved to Texas, I talked to God and said, "You don't have to teach me that again. I remember the verse." But, you know, God speaks through his word.
Oh, absolutely.
And he uses his word in various circumstances to be able to help you. It's so true that he brings to mind the scripture, like they're buried in Awana, or even if you just read it, you know, he'll bring to mind. You may not know the exact passage, but you'll have enough of the word that you can look it up. Okay, yeah, that's what I need, right? So he uses it to whack you,
Yeah.
and he uses it to lift you. Sometimes so high it makes you cry, and teach you, open your eyes to passages that you've read all your life and never saw things. So anyway, he whacked me with that one. Anything more you want to say on that, hon? About
No.
Georgia?
About God whacking you
Was
up
that part of
upside
the
head.
prayer? Whack her, come on, open
Dear
her
Lord,
eyes here.
please.
Get her on board.
Well, I will tell you this, like, honestly, we really did open wide our hearts. And it's a good thing because, you know, after we moved to Texas, 6 months later, Hurricane Harvey whacked us.
We were in the house 6 months when the storm hit the Orange Beaumont area. And I told the story this morning about when we first came to Bethel, very new in the church. She mentioned earlier she was pregnant with Drew when we moved here. And he was born in Marietta while we, you know, we're new
Like
residents
two,
here.
2 months we'd even lived in the town, so we hardly knew anybody here.
And so we, you know, we've been coming to Bethel, and Bethel opened wide their hearts to us, to minister to us
Yeah.
during that time.
They came to the hospital to visit. Some of the people, I'm like, you don't even know me. I can't believe you're coming to see me.
Right. And we saw the same thing in Texas.
Yeah.
We had been in the house 6 months, flooded, 4 feet of water in the house. You know, everything on the first floor was gone. We didn't have a place to
Lost both our
live.
cars, yeah.
Lost both of our cars.
Mm-hmm.
And the people of Texas,
Came
when
around us.
when I would tell the story about the flood damage,
Sure.
and the response of people in Texas was, well, welcome to Texas. And I would
Although
say,
that town had not really been hit like that
no.
before. This
But
was
my
a never
response to
before.
that was, well, our welcome to Texas was not the storm.
Right.
It was the people of Texas,
Mm-hmm.
the fellow believers that reached out to us and came to our house and helped us sort through
Mm-hmm.
our belongings and offered us a place to stay.
Yeah.
So, again, we were blessed by that, that God had blessed us through the people of that church
Okay.
to minister to us and care for us.
Can I talk a little bit about Hurricane Harvey?
Absolutely.
I will tell you, like, God just was amazing.
Absolutely. is, yeah.
Totally amazing. Because I mean, we were just two hillbillies from West Virginia, you know, we didn't know anything about hurricanes. And we were like taking our clues from everybody, and like, you're not going to flood, it's never flooded, you know, the house has been there since 1980, and you know, it's going to be fine. And my neighbor had said, the water's going to get in the street, it's going to be around the house, it's going to go up to the fire hydrant across the street, it's all going to be fine, I'm not even worried about it, I'm going to go up here to our lake house and just hang out. And she started calling me, like, oh, well, where's the water? Well, it's in the yard. Okay, where's the water now? Well, it's in the street. Yeah, that's supposed to be expected. She calls back later. Where's water now? You know that fire hydrant you told me about? It's over the fire hydrant. I can't even see the fire hydrant. It's on up to the tree. And she said, this is going to get real bad. And my knees went weak. And Max was putting his boots on to go to work. And I said, I just have a vision, Max, where you're going to be at work and water's just going to be coming up all around me in this house. And so he hung out a little bit. And I went down to the driveway with my knee-high boots and couldn't get to the end of the driveway. And I went back in the garage and checked it against our cars. And I'm like, well, I can't get my car out. Checked it against Max's truck. We better get out of here. So we took off, couldn't get out of our neighborhood. Someone we knew went to our church we'd never met, let us in. We stayed the night with them. Then their house flooded the next day, and then we all escaped. Yeah, they had, I mean, we had the Cajun Navy came and got
Right,
us.
yeah.
But these people didn't know us. They just opened up their house and let us in. They took us to people they knew. They opened their house. They didn't know us. Then they had to escape. We all went together, went to another house of someone in Louisiana, standing in the garage of this guy's house. He's telling these people in the house he's going to fix their house up because he's a contractor. It's like a general contractor.
Commercial
A
contract.
commercial contractor. His name's Gary Babineau, Gary and Pam Babineau. And he was telling them he was going to fix their houses up because he knew them, but he didn't know us. And I tapped him and said, would you fix our house too if we pay you? And he said, nope. And he turned back around and started helping them. And then he went, do you live in the same neighborhood? I said, yes. He said, I'll fix yours too. And they took us in their house,
Yeah.
took care of us. I mean, it was just like God just opened up. And here we had a contractor. A week after that, got a call that my dad's cancer had metastasized, and he had 6 weeks to maybe 3 months to live. And I'm sitting in a rental car with nothing. and bawling my eyes out, calling Megan, crying. I don't even know how I'm going to get home before my dad dies. And I said, Megan, we got to pray. And we just started praying and praying. And just like in my room when I was little, coming upstream from nowhere came, trust me. I mean, it was just like total opposite of how I was feeling. It was so strong, trust me.
Sure.
And I knew it was God. And so we did. And God just took care of everything. We needed to be closer to where he worked. And our friends, the Boyntons that we had met, Charlie and Barbara, Barbara said, here, let me show you this. And they had an apartment above their garage with a bathroom, a bedroom bathroom. You can live here. And I said, Barbara, this is going to be a long time. You better pray about this. I mean, you may have us for months. And she said, no, just go. And so they took us in.
4 months.
Didn't really know us. And
4 months, wow.
Yeah, and half the time he was there and I was in Huntington because I got home to my dad. And he was dying, and he did die during all that. But God, even through all that, there's so many things I could tell you about this, about what God did. It's amazing. I could go on about this. So I gave you the shortest story I could give you of that. Okay?
Well, I know it, that I've heard portions of it for at different times about the story.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't realize you were 4 months in that apartment or over the garage, which that's,
Yeah.
you know, absolutely God worked that out, right? You know, and kept you safe. If you'd have tried to, knowing me, I'd said, I'm going to stick it out. I'm going to stay in this house, and we'd have lived upstairs, you know, but we couldn't have done that. You couldn't have done that because,
Too much construction stuff going on. Oh, plus
Yeah.
they had to bust out our front door
Yeah.
because you don't open the refrigerator up when you have a flood, and you have to get the refrigerator out the door. You strap it up, leave all the food inside of it, and you take it out the door, and they couldn't get out the door. So we had a door with side lights and knocked all of it out,
yeah.
took out the refrigerator and just had like a piece of plywood over the door. And then the doors were at a premium. You couldn't get doors. And then the people ordered the wrong door. And so it was months before we could get a door to our house. So, yeah. It was, he moved into the upstairs eventually, but they were still doing the downstairs.
Sure.
So, yeah.
We were kind of opposite because the house we live in now, as our family was growing, we needed to grow the house. So we took the roof off the house.
Nice.
And put a second floor on while we were living downstairs. Yeah.
So you
Got
know
stories
about
about
all
that,
the
too.
dust and
Yeah.
mess and noise,
Yeah, I've got
strangers
stories
in your
about
house.
that, too. Absolutely. It's crazy to try to do that, but you know, sometimes that's what you do. So, well, very good. So it's you all have spent a lot of time traveling, and I know. Do you like to travel? I mean, you've spent a lot of time. Moved 8 different times. You know, I can't even imagine trying to move now. And Amy and I think I've moved 2 or 3 times, 8 times. That's just crazy. But do you all like to travel?
Yep,
We do. We've taken a lot of
yeah.
trips, you know, vacations in the U.S. and outside the U.S.
Yeah, it started out the first time we went to the Bahamas on points, your frequent flyer miles,
Okay.
Right.
hotel points, because he had traveled a lot
Yeah.
for work, and a garage sale. That's how we went.
The garage sale need a little bit extra just to get there.
That's
so,
how
hey,
we got
that's
there.
what works.
All the kids' old baby equipment got us to the Bahamas. And Megan got the chicken pox while we were gone, too. And then the next one I remember is going to Houston. He was on a business trip. We went to Houston. That's when I realized how much I loved exploring. And then he had a business trip going to Belgium. That was probably the beginning of lots of travel, 2008.
8 or 9,
Yeah.
somewhere there.
Okay.
And so I had, this is kind of fun. So I like to travel. I knew it, and I someday anticipated maybe I get to go out of the country. So for my birthday, I said I want a passport for my birthday.
Cool.
And he said, "What do you want a passport for?" I'm
Where
like,
are you going?
Where are you going?
I said, "I don't know, but when it happens, I'm going to be ready."
There you go.
And so I got a passport and nowhere to go, but I had a passport. And then he found out a few years later, that he was going to go to Belgium, and I started saving all the money I could, birthday money. I worked the polls, saved the money for that. Anything, Valentine's Day, just give me money. You know, anywhere I could get money until I'd saved like $1,000, so that could pay for my ticket to get over there.
Sure.
And so Max went to buy the ticket and realized he had enough frequent flyer miles. It was only going to cost $150.
Wow.
And I'm like, I have $1,000. What are we going to do? This is like a week before or something like that. And I said, I know, let's go to Paris. And he went, we can't go to Paris. We can't even plan this fast.
Yeah, this goes against all of my planning tendencies, because we had the.
No
the-
spreadsheets
We had
here.
the travel arrangements, we had the hotel,
was all
we had
done.
the car, we had everything all laid out.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to be there 2 or 3 days early, so you get acclimated to the time difference.
Yeah.
And she says, well, what are we going to do? Well, we're just going to, kind of hang out in Belgium. Well, where else could we go? Look, the plans are all made. It's all set.
I said, can we take a train there? And so he was online, like, brrr. Okay, I can buy tickets. And he had frequent stay nights at a hotel.
There you go.
So he got a hotel. Have you heard Arc de Triomphe? Yeah, the arch that's in Paris. There's an arch. And
So
it's-
that's what we decided. We're
yeah,
going to
it's
go
on
to
the
Paris.
street, right down the street.
Well, we
from
have
there.
no plans for Paris. We
No.
have no place to stay, a way to get there.
We did get the place.
We got a place
and we
to
got a
stay.
train.
We've bought a train ticket. We figured
Yeah.
that out.
We took backpacks and left our luggage in the hotel in Belgium, and we were going to go like overnight and back. And we took backpacks with what we needed.
Yeah.
And went, and when we got there, we got off the train. It was one of the high-speed trains. It was so fun. And we got off, and we got off the train, and we're,
Stepped outside the train station. Okay, we're in Paris. Now what? Because we speak
he said,
no
what do
French.
we do now? I said, I've always seen these things on TV where they have these places where they sell like magazines and newspapers. Maybe there's one of those. We stepped out. There was one right there on the corner. And we went over there and found a map. And the guy couldn't speak any English, and he could tell we didn't know what we were doing. And he started pointing at a red double-decker bus, saying, Bus Rouge, Bus Rouge. We got that. We knew what that was.
Okay.
And then he took the map and started putting circles all over it. And then he said,
Sacré-Cœur.
Sacré-Cœur, Sacré-Cœur. And he kept pointing in a certain direction. We go, we don't know what it is, but he really wants us to go there, so we're going to go there. And we walked, trying to follow the map. The streets are not square. It's kind of a mess. And we walked, and there was an opening in the building. And there was something way up high with little black
Well,
dots
you could
all
see
over
this
it.
staircase going up the hill,
Really
Okay.
high.
really high, and lots of people going up the staircase, and we were in the area where he had been pointing to. That must be it.
Here's
So
what
we,
he said. That's got to be it.
so we start walking over, and we're walking up the steps, and it's, it's a hike.
I,
And you get to a certain spot, and there's like a plaza where you
Uh-uh.
can take a break. And we're like walking up these steps. Okay, what's this
Trudging,
going to
trudging,
be?
trudging.
You get to this
He
plaza,
was at the top.
and you turn around, and here is the whole city of Paris just at
At
your
your
feet.
feet. You can see everything. You can see the Arc de Triomphe, and you can see the Eiffel Tower. And like, it's like a map. You could take the map and go like this.
Okay.
And we went, there's Arc de Triomphe, our hotel's over there, let's go that way. And that's what we did.
So again, this is against all of my nature. This is totally spontaneous.
Nothing planned at all.
Nothing planned, other than we have a place to stay
Yeah.
and a way to get back to Belgium.
But we had a blast. We had so much fun. It was really, really good. And Belgium was great. We had learned to speak conversational Dutch
Okay.
using Pimsleur's language system that I got from the library here, and tried to speak Dutch as much as possible. And they would be like, "I can speak English." I'm like, no, let us speak as much as we can. We've worked so hard.
Worked really hard on this.
So
You're
we had
not
a really
doing it right.
yeah, so we had a really great trip, and then we got home and said, we need to explore things in the States. People come to the States. So we made it our goal to do vacations in the States. So, Grand Canyon, and went to Alaska,
Right.
went to Hawaii.
Yeah.
Where else did we go, babe? We've been to other places too. Well, we went to Acadia recently.
Went to Maine
Maine.
last year.
I forget. There's another place we went to, but just started making it our goal to try to hit things in the United States. But then he got a business trip to Italy, and so then we ended up doing Italy too.
I remember you guys going
Yeah.
there. Yeah.
Yeah, and we
Very
did the
good.
same thing, added. I will tell you what, it was my favorite thing in Italy. We went to Rome, and we're standing in front of the Colosseum, and we do the tour, and they say they started building it in 70 AD. And I'm like, Paul, the Apostle Paul. You know, he was here, he died, I looked it up, 65 AD.
Okay.
And there is this building right here. You know, they were probably already planning and starting all this, you know what I mean? I'm like, this is not that much long after Jesus died, you know? And look at this place. Like, I have totally the wrong idea how smart these people were. You think that they're like, you know, they don't know as much as we know. Oh, my gracious, no. But to stand there and have that recognition of, I am looking at something that is, this is Rome, like I read about in the Bible.
Sure.
And just this feeling of awe, because in the United States, if something's 200 or 300 years old, we're like, oh, it's 200 or 300 years. But, you know, in Belgium, I stood in front of a building that was built in the 11th century, and it still had a business in it.
Sure.
I'm like, I don't even get this. So it was really amazing. So we do love to travel.
It is really odd. I mean, for the people in the United States, like you said, 200 or 300 years. That's a long time. That's antique. You know, that's real history there. But that's not 1,000 years old. Like there's a lot of places over in Europe and closer into the Middle East than that region is.
Yeah.
My wife's grandmother and grandfather were able to make a trip to Israel, and
I wanna do that.
That same feeling of.
You want to go?
Jesus walked right here, you know, and it's like it was
Oh, yeah.
amazing, and they couldn't talk enough about how
Yeah.
that same kind of experience.
Oh, I want to do that.
Yeah.
You want to do that? We could get a trip together.
I'm all for that.
Cody,
Yeah.
Grant, you guys want to go? I would really love to do that. That's one of my bucket list places. Is there a place you want to go? Oh,
Scotland.
I know.
Scotland.
Why do you want to go to Scotland?
Play golf in Scotland,
I know.
the birthplace of golf.
I want to go to Ireland and take a horse ride, a horse tour of the castles, and just go to a castle, stay the night, ride the horse to the next castle, stay the night. That's what I want to do in Ireland.
Yeah,
You know, I think that would be really cool.
Our daughter-in-law her family is from Ireland, right? Ireland, and they have family still there. And they've gone over and visited some family over there. Not Drew, but her
Yeah.
family has.
Very cool.
I think that's really cool to be able to trace your roots, because I don't know mine, not really that well.
No,
So-
well, and that's another thing is my family came from Switzerland, Bonn, Switzerland area, and I've always wanted to go
Interesting.
over into that German Switzerland area to visit that too. I think that would be pretty cool.
Yeah.
That would be cool.
My dad researched our history, and my maiden name was Pauli.
Okay.
And what he found was, the belief is that Pauli came from followers of Paul.
Okay.
That's where that last name came from, which I found really wonderful, because my dad loved Paul, and, you know,
Mm-hmm.
I love to read what Paul's written, and so I love the idea that actually might be so. He found one Pauli that came over on the Mayflower, not the Mayflower, but one of the Mayflower trips, not the original one.
Right, yeah.
And so he tried his best to make a connection there, but, you know, somewhere along the lines, things break apart, so couldn't quite get there.
Yeah.
But
Well,
anyway.
I think it's grandfather, great-great-great-grandfather is the afforder that came from Bonn, Switzerland.
Yeah,
And
so
we've
you
got some of
know.
We've got some of the old wooden trunks that came over with them.
Cool.
That's
with their
really
names
cool.
on them, you know, in the house. And
That's a
so
treasure.
It is. It's
That's a
really-
real
Well,
treasure.
and that's where Stefan's name came from. Because his name was Stefan. And,
That is so cool.
yeah.
Does he get the
Even
trunk?
spelled that way.
Does he
Yeah.
get the trunk someday? He got the name.
You know, that's probably will
Flip a
happen, you
coin
know.
for that trunk.
We've got a couple of them. I imagine one of them may end up in his house. But yeah, that's, so it's really neat to be able to make those connections and follow that and trace that history back.
Oh, yeah.
You know, because, you know, trace it far enough back, all of us came from over there, or most of us come from
Yeah.
over there anyhow. You know.
Trace it all the way back. It all came from Adam and Eve.
Oh, well, there you go. Absolutely. So tell me a little about, I know you've mentioned a little bit about your parents in Huntington.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. Yes, when my father passed away, and I spent a couple of months taking care of Dad. After that, my mom was executrix of the will, and I helped her, and I realized my mom needed help. She needed help. My sister was with her. They all needed help. And Max's dad was also, he was living at the beach. He was living by himself, but also having some issues, and we realized he needed help too.
sure.
and his brother and sister were doing all they could. My sister was doing all she could. But the over 1,000-mile distance was really making it hard, and I'd already been away from him for months. Like, I was 4 months between my dad and helping my mom, away from him, and we just realized this is not going to get easier.
No.
And so that's why he said, anywhere on the East Coast. If someone can get me anywhere on the East Coast so we can at least get home in a day, that's what we need. And his boss was amazing, because he really considered it and looked for an opportunity and found an opportunity and told Max, I think this will be great for you guys, because you're going to be right back,
Right back where you were.
and you'll be close to your family and into your friends. And so I'm very thankful to him, very, very thankful, because not only my mom, but then my nephew, Derek. A lot of people, have prayed for Derek Justice, and it's my older sister's son, with leukemia. And I ended up, he was in the hospital for 7 months, and I ended up probably close to 5 months, about 5 months, every week going and staying in the hospital with him for maybe 3 days, sometimes 4, because his care, he just needed someone with him constantly. And so he is a miracle of God.
Yes, he is.
Even the doctors say, we've never had anybody like you. I remember the first night I went to stay with him in the hospital. He coded 3 times. And he was in one of those situations where he was in ICU, and I walked in, he's on the ventilator, he's got tubes everywhere, swollen probably 3 times his normal size, 2 times. I mean, I stood by his bed and I thought, oh, dear God, he could die right this minute. That's really what I thought. Sorry, Derek, if you ever listen to this, but I didn't tell him that
Sure.
until much later. I don't even know if I've ever told him that part. But prayed and prayed and prayed, and God just did one thing after another, miraculous things, unbelievable things. One of the nurse practitioners took me out in the hall and said, whatever you guys are doing, keep doing it. Keep praying it. Keep praying it, because they're working. We can't even believe what's happening. A doctor who was very, very negative about him getting better came into his room one morning and said, Derek, you're so much better. Even I don't believe it. And he wanted to make charts and graphs of what had happened to him, like he couldn't believe it.
Sure.
And there were times like they were incremental better. And I would say something really positive, but I could see it in the nurses and doctors' eyes that don't get your hopes up.
Yeah.
And
sure.
it would be like, but we know somebody,
Sure.
Yes,
absolutely.
and he's doing it as we pray. And Derek and his wife, Megan, would stand here and give an amazing testimony of what all God has done. And so, so my being back here, him being back here,
That's God's hand at work.
truly was God's hand at work. He really needed help, and it turns out I was the one that could help.
Sure.
So, it's been a pretty amazing journey since we've been back, plus the church, Max has
Yes.
been super involved here,
Absolutely.
helping out more than I have been because of
Yeah.
all of the other things. I go to Huntington about once a week, so.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
And then, kind of halfway between Drew and Megan,
Yep.
which is nice for,
Yeah.
you know, for the traveling there, so keep them
Well,
within a day of each
yes.
one of those, so.
And then when COVID hit, the kids were out of school, they had no one to watch the kids.
Uh-huh.
So then I was there,
Yeah,
almost there, 4 weeks?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, till they started trying to get something figured out, so.
so I kind of get the feeling Max has really figured out this long-term, bachelor life, every once in a while, well,
Unfortunately.
she's gone again.
Unfortunately.
But I will tell you, there's not one thing that I've done that he hasn't been right behind me,
Sure.
saying, you need to go do that. He supports me 100%, prays for all of it. And so if it weren't for Max, I couldn't do that, And I'd leave him food. I'd fix food, leave him food. I would come home, wash clothes, give him hugs and kisses.
Well, at least I know in this area, and it sounds like even in Texas or Georgia, if it ever happened there, in a church family, he probably never had to worry about
Don't
that
go
anyhow.
Yeah.
So,
But we are, the two are as one, and if I'm there, he's there. If he's
Yes.
here, I'm here. And so, I mean, this is the way we've always worked. So God really blessed me with Max Blake.
From 5 years old.
And he answered my prayers to bless me with Susan.
He told me that. He said, I used to pray after I left you, God, please give her to me.
Right.
And I'm like, I prayed first.
Well, it is wonderful that God answered both your prayers with each other. So,
He did.
Max and Susan, thank you again for being here tonight.
Thanks.
Always wonderful to have a conversation with you guys and to learn even a little bit more about your all's lives. and
Well, if
the
you
way
got another
God
hour, we could
has-
keep on going.
Yes, we could. But not just about your life, but always amazing to hear how God has worked in your lives.
And he has.
Every step of the way.
All the
Every
way.
step of the way.
We can point back at our marriage all the way. He has.
It's truly amazing to see that. As we finish up here tonight, again, thank you for joining us. And as always, what is God doing in your life? We'd love to hear from you. Have a great evening.
Hold it all together, everybody needs you strong. Life hits you out of nowhere, barely leaves you holding on. And when you're tired of fighting